Today's episode of Just the Tip Tuesday is brought to you by CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Right now, CK is running an awesome deal on their MT200 AC/DC TIG welder now through the end of 2022. The MT200 comes with everything you need right out of the box to start TIG welding, except the consumables and gas. The MT200 is a complete TIG welding system capable of 5 amp arc starts and has a compact portable design, weighing in at just 32 pounds, and it's dual voltage, so you can run it off 115 or 220 volt. And it boasts an easy-to-use interface to allow you to get set up to weld in a flash. The MT200 AC/DC is the answer to both creativity and production-driven TIG welding. This innovative TIG machine provides the ability to quickly and efficiently adapt to dynamic welding situations while maintaining the quality of experience you've come to know, love, and expect from CK Worldwide. Get your MT200 today for just $19.95, along with other genuine CK Worldwide parts and accessories through your local authorized CK distributor. Not sure where your closest distributor is? No problem. Head on over to ckworldwide.com and click on the Find a Dealer tab. It's that easy. CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Just the Tip Tuesday. I'm not sure what's going on, but I've had several people reach out this past couple of weeks about getting into welding education. This is a topic that I am truly passionate about. I mean, obviously, right? I've definitely got a passion for this stuff. Who else would teach welding full-time and then put out 2 podcasts a week about welding if they weren't passionate about it, right? I've been in welding education for the past 9 years. 8 years as an instructor, 1 year as a program manager. I've taught at 2 different schools myself, and I've attended 3 different welding schools as a student, and I've visited several other schools throughout the country. As I said, the past couple weeks, I've been hit up quite a bit relating to welding education. I figured since so many people are reaching out, it's probably just a good idea to sit down and do a whole episode about it, because I'm sure if some people are asking, more people have the same question that they're not asking, just like in a classroom. Trisha Falcone from Facebook said, "I'm starting at a school for the first time, and I would like to know how to determine what I should be teaching." So I can definitely relate to that. Brett Duncan from Instagram asked, "I'm looking at getting into welding education and stumped on how to make the first step." Okay, I've been there as well. Edgar Savias via Instagram asked, "Any advice on things to study for helping a new instructor become a great instructor?" Well, we got 3 questions here, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to go ahead and kick it off with Brett's question first, though. And I answered Brett's question via DMs on Instagram, just chatting back and forth with him. But I'd like to go ahead and answer the question a little bit more broadly for those that are considering getting into weld instruction or welding education. The first thing you need to understand is being a welding instructor does not pay very well, at least in the public sector anyway. The first year I taught welding, I was very misinformed on how the pay schedule actually worked. I was told I'd be making a set dollar amount that was really attractive when I multiplied that by a 40-hour work week. However, it wasn't until I got hired on that I was informed that I was only going to be working 28 hours a week. That was my maximum. That was my cap. I could not exceed 28 hours a week. That dollar amount was far less attractive once I did the math on that one. So for the first year, I lived paycheck to paycheck, and that was on a bi-weekly schedule and hitting up the cash advance payday loan places in between. It sucked. I was stuck in a job that I truly loved, and I was really excited to get out of bed each morning for, but it was causing serious financial issues for me. At that point, I could have said, hey, screw it. I'm just going to go back into structural steel ironwork. I was making good money over there, had good pay, good benefits. But on the other hand, I had a group of students that were depending on me to teach them this skill set to make them successful. And I couldn't just leave. I mean, that's just me. It was hard for me. I was really enjoying what I was doing. Watching the look on the student's face when they finally caught on, when they were grasping a concept, when they were, getting a test plate done. We were sending off for third-party weld testing, and we were getting the information back, and students were passing these tests. And I was just as excited as the students were. There's no way I could have, ethically just dipped out on them, been like, hey, I'm putting in my 2-day notice, I'm leaving today. There's no way I could have done that. So I decided, I was like, hey, you know what? Screw it. I got all the stuff at the house. I'm going to go open up a side business. So that's what I did. I opened up my side business just to stay above water so I could continue teaching, which is something that I fell in love with. I found a passion for. So I just want everybody to understand that, you know, if you get into teaching, do not do it for the money. The money's not there. It may come one day, but it's probably not going to come up front. Most colleges are going to put you on, you know, temporary or adjunct or part-time or whatever the case may be. So just be aware of that. Understand that. Make sure, you know, you're financially secure, that you didn't just tell your wife, go ahead and take some time off from work and take care of the kids. And, you know, I can cover it with this salary and everything. And then you switch jobs, which is exactly what happened to me. I told my wife to, you know, go ahead, take some time off from work. We weren't spending enough time with the kids. We had newborns. And I was like, hey, just quit your job. I make enough money for the both of us doing this ironwork thing. And then I decided to get into teaching. I thought that was going to put me in a better, you know, financial bracket, but it did not. It was, on the contrary, it kind of screwed me over a little bit. So like I said, do not do it for the money. You got to have a passion to do this stuff. Once you're okay with the salary aspect of it, you want to make sure you have the experience and the knowledge to teach the subject, which Brett from the question definitely does. Like I said, we talked online for a little bit. But for the rest of the audience, I want you to make sure that you understand that part as well. You need to have experience before getting into welding education. I recommend at least bare minimum 6 years in the field or in a shop. Bare minimum, you know, if you're fresh out of welding school, you don't want to jump right back into teaching. In my experience, it's a tremendous benefit to give students stories from your time in the shop or field. Being able to speak from experience and not from training it's going to make the content a little bit more relatable to them. The stories from your experience help the lesson sink in so that they can remember the content. I mean, think about, you know, Bob Moffat, you know, when he does all the videos on weld.com and everything, he kind of goes, he likes to take the scenic route. You know, he's going to tell you a little story about the process that he's trying to teach, the information he's trying to convey. Bob is a great instructor. I know several other great instructors, and they use stories to get that information across to the students to where it helps them retain that information a lot better. I additionally have several stories from a bunch of different topics from my time in the shop and in the field. And I think that helps make a good educator. It also helps you establish credibility with your students, or it's to reinforce the importance for something. So for instance, when I cover safety on the pedestal grinder, I tell the students not to wear gloves while they're doing that. And I enforce the importance by telling them the story of Perry, a guy in one of our shops that I was working at who disregarded the don't wear your gloves while you're using the pedestal grinder rule and wound up losing his finger because the wheel caught the tip of his glove and pulled his finger right between the tool rest and the wheel. Or the story of my buddy 480 Fred, who decided to file the leg off one of the prongs on the electrical plug of the 230 volt machine he was using to make it fit into a 480 volt outlet. There's a reason that leg is there, and that's why we shouldn't plug a 230 volt machine into a 480 volt outlet. We lost a good machine that day. Thank God Fred wasn't hurt in the process, at least not physically anyway. I'm pretty sure he had to change his britches right after it happened though. You see, these stories bring home the point. If you just tell a student not to do something, they're going to forget. You need to give them a reason to remember it. You got to make it relevant. Something that's going to stick into their mind. And to do that, you need that experience. The next thing you need to have is a passion for what you're teaching and a passion for teaching it. You need to love the subject that you're going to be teaching and love the process of teaching it. There's a lot of people in welding education that are just there for the paycheck, albeit a small one, but a paycheck nonetheless. And it shows. They met the bare minimum requirements and have no idea what they're doing, and they're just there for that paycheck, the health care, the benefits, the summers off, the discounts, or the teacher appreciation days. I don't know, but some of them just don't belong there. And you don't want to be that person. Okay, I went into a welding school one time, and the students were walking around in Crocs and no safety glasses. The instructor was nowhere to be found, and this was an active shop. You can't convince me that that instructor is passionate about what they're teaching or has the experience to be in that position. If they did, the students wouldn't be wandering around the shop unsupervised without safety glasses and proper footwear for welding at a minimum. So if you want to get into education, make sure it's in your heart. You have to be the right person for the job, and you have to know that before you even apply. These young men and women that are going to be going through your class are depending on you to teach them the right way to do things and set them up for success while they're under your care and training. Next up, you need to understand Not only will you be a welding instructor, especially at a high school level or vocational or community college level, you're not only going to be a welding instructor, you're going to be a parental figure to some of these kids. You're going to be a guidance counselor. You're going to be a mental health specialist. You're going to be a financial advisor. These are the things that are not listed in the job description. I think it falls under the other duties as assigned clause. And you're going to be so much more to many of these students. And I had no idea about that when I got into welding education. I thought I was just going to go in there and teach them welding. No, you're teaching them work ethics. You're teaching them life skills. I mean, you got to be prepared to do all that stuff. And as my good friend and mentor, Ryan Eubank, taught me, you're not just a welding instructor. You're a life changer. And he's 100% right. You're going to be meeting people from all different walks of life, various backgrounds, and very diverse upbringings. So be prepared for that as well. You're changing people's lives if you take this job seriously. You'll give some of them opportunities they never thought possible. You'll give some of them confidence who never had it before in their life. You'll give some of them a sense of purpose. You'll give some of them a way out of their current lifestyle. You'll show some of them that welding isn't for them, and that's okay too. So if you're up for getting into welding education after all that, awesome. The first thing I would do is check out Indeed.com and see if there are any listings in your area. Or check out the local websites for the different schools that you want to apply for. Once you find a school that has an opening, do some research on the school, especially if it's a big one. I kind of wish that I would have looked up the first school that I taught at on Glassdoor.com and read the reviews from current and past employees. I probably would have never took that job. But then again, on the other hand, it's a good thing I didn't, because had I not taken that job, I wouldn't be where I am today. And what I'm doing today is still teaching, and I love that. It's something I'm truly passionate about. I don't know what it is about teaching young people, how to do these different skills, but it's got that effect on you. It pulls you in. But on a side note, you can be damn sure I did some research on the next college that I went to go work for. One other thing you could do is stop by the school and talk to the welding instructor. Ask them if they're looking for an adjunct, which is just a fancy name for a part-time or substitute instructor. I actually had a guy who did just that. He walked in one day, said, hey, I'm a welder. I've been doing this for 16 years. Do you guys have any openings? A spot for like a part-timer or substitute, and I was like, actually, you know what? We do, because I need to take some time off from class and I don't have anybody to substitute. And if I had somebody to substitute my class, I wouldn't feel bad about leaving. So it actually worked out. I mean, this guy came in, I had him do a welding demo for the students. I said, here, go ahead and give him an introductory, TIG class. And he just picked it up and ran with it. And he did an awesome job. He's been working full time for the college now for the past 3 years, and just an awesome welding instructor. Once again, truly passionate about what he's teaching and the fact that he's actually teaching welding. So that's my 2 cents when it comes to getting into welding instruction. I could dive in a lot deeper, but that's probably enough to get someone started. Next, I want to go ahead and answer Trisha's question. She said, I'm starting out at a school for the first time and would like to know how to determine what I should be teaching. First, I recommend determine the goal of the program. Are you a high school teacher, doing like an introductory course to welding, or are you at a college teaching a course to get students jobs, launch them into careers once they get done? Or are you a specialty welding program that's preparing them to go right into industry? If you're a high school, I recommend just getting these kids exposed to welding. Start off with the gas metal arc welding process or MIG welding process, because it's a lot easier to teach in a short amount of time. And then, once they grasp that concept, get them working on small projects. If you can get them hooked on building and fabrication and like artwork and stuff like that, and show them what's actually possible with welding, they're going to be a lot more interested. I wouldn't get too heavy into the theory. You're going to lose them. They're high school students, and it really depends on the type of high school you're at. I know some schools, they just do like an introductory to welding. Some of the schools up north, they're taking these high school kids, they're in this program for 4 years, and then they're launching them into industry when they get done. If that's what's going on, you may want to, take that approach from like a vocational college or technical college and incorporate those type of teachings in your program. But if you only have them for like an hour or two a day for a semester, or, a couple terms out of the year, or out of their 4 years that they're going to be in there, just show them what's possible with welding. Introduce them to a couple processes, get them on some projects, let them build some stuff, just let them see how cool welding actually is. Now, if you're at a community college or a state college, your goal is probably to teach them what they need to get employed. This is where I found myself when I got into teaching. My goal was to take these students, these young men and women, and launch them into a career. Not a job, because a job stands for just over broke. I want to get them, into the industry where they can make a competitive salary. They get decent benefits, they get paid time off, stuff like that. When I first started out, I would teach my 28 hours that, my maximum hours I was allowed to teach Monday through Thursday. And then Friday on my own time, I'd go around to different shops or do some research for the local job listings on the internet, such as like Indeed or Monster.com. And I'd find out what the employers were actually looking for. And I made sure that that's what I was teaching in my program. I didn't waste my time or my students' time teaching them the skills that nobody was hiring for, like oxyacetylene welding. I mean, that's one of the things that the state says, hey, you have to teach this. And I said, no, I don't. Nobody's hiring for it. The goal is to get them out in the industry. Nobody's hiring for oxyacetylene welding, so I'm just going to skip over that. There's a couple other things you can kind of shrink the training down on too. I mean, you can teach somebody how to do plasma arc cutting and carbon arc gouging, in less than a week, so don't beat that up. Don't spend too much time on things that people aren't hiring for. One thing you might want to do is set up an advisory board. This is a group of people from industry that are going to help guide the curriculum and the training content for industry practice. Personally, I chose not to have an advisory board because those 5 companies aren't going to hire 100% of my students. I like to work with as many companies as possible so that I can get my students hired at the end of the program. I'm in a very diverse area though, so depending on where you're at, an advisory board might be a great option for you. But here in Florida, we've got ironwork, we've got pipe fitting, we've got, structural, we've got ornamental, we've got architectural, so I try to incorporate all of that into my program so the students can kind of identify with what area of the industry they want to get into. And then the last few weeks of the program, they can really focus in on that and, kind of gear up and get ready to go into that industry. But if that doesn't work out, they also have a skill set that they learn in the program they can fall back on until that job opportunity is available. I'd also like to recommend using the Modern Welding textbook from Goodhart and Wilcox. If you have to have a textbook for your course, that's the one I would go with. Aside from that, make it your own. Teach to your strengths. And if you're not good at a specific process, grab an open booth and practice once the students leave for the day. Or hell, practice while they're there. There's no shame in practicing a specific process or a position before you have to go teach it. I'd always brush up on a process like the week before. If I had to teach something, I would, get in the booth and I would practice. My students would see me. They're like, what are you doing? I'm practicing. Why? You're supposed to be, so good. Yeah, but this can be a perishable skill. You can't be great at all processes all year, especially if you're only teaching them for a couple weeks here and there throughout the year. So get some practice in. It's just going to make you better. And if you're better, your students are only going to benefit from it. So, and then you're setting a good example for them. You're saying, hey, it's a perishable skill. You need to practice it. If you're not doing it for a while, jump back in, throw a hood on, grab a stinger. If you need to practice or brush up on your stick game, there's no shame in practicing. I mean, like Hunter Wilson said on the podcast a while back, how often do athletes train? Every single day. So if you're going to be a great instructor, you need to be, practicing. Maybe not every day, but get in the booth a couple times a week. And don't be ashamed of it. Show your students, lead by example. The last question I got is from Edgar, and he says, any advice on what to study for making a new instructor a great instructor? Honestly, Edgar, pretty much any technical manual out there that you can get your hands on, whether it's a textbook, a welding book, any of those are going to help you out in that aspect. I mean, the more you know, the better off you're going to be. But honestly, what really helped me to become a better instructor were seminars and workshops, because I'm really good at learning via visual and hands-on and audibly, and not so much reading. That's kind of one of my downsides. I don't like to read. I've mentioned it 100 times on the podcast, and probably because I don't do enough of it, and that's why I suck at it, and I need more practice at reading. But I digress. I don't just like the seminars and the workshops for the content of the course, but the networking I've been able to do through them. I've learned so much from talking to other different instructors from all across the United States. Everything from how they run their program on a shoestring budget to incorporating project-based learning to running different welding machines or different techniques. I highly recommend the different educator workshops. Anyone you can get a hold of, take the advantage and go off and do it. A lot of one of the benefits of being an educator or being in the school system is, they send you off for training. Like most schools, they're going to send you to different training and stuff because you have to stay up with industry. You have to stay up with the different trends and stuff. So they're going to send you to professional development courses. Make sure they have something to do with welding, and you can get that, earmarked in the budget so you can go out there and fly out and do some of these seminars. A few that I've attended over the past couple of years is the Welding Educator Workshops from Lincoln Electric. I've done their Welding Educator Workshop Basic. I've done their Welding Educator Workshop Advanced. I've done their Beyond the Booth training. I've done the robotics program. Like, there's just so many different classes you can take that are kind of geared towards educators. Another one I highly recommend that's an awesome time is the Educators Institute that the American Welding Society puts on. You can get more information on that with the by going on the aws.org and then just type in an Instructors Institute. This is something you have to apply for with your local section, but essentially they pick one section rep from all the 22 different districts across the U.S., and then I believe they bring in one from Canada and one from Mexico. So there's a total of 24 people that can attend this. It happens one time per year down in Miami, Florida. And it's just a week of networking and how to set up a lesson plan and, different types of curriculum to use and different, teaching processes, different ways that people learn. It's a really good class. I highly recommend that you apply for that. It took me, I think, 2 to 3 years of applying for that before I was finally selected. But when I was, it was definitely worth the wait. There's also different seminars and workshops you can take at FabTech. So every year, whether it's FabTech Atlanta, FabTech Chicago, or FabTech Vegas, they have different classes set up for welding instructors, or maybe it's not specifically for welding instructors. Maybe it's for a specific process or how to develop a welding procedure or anything like that. Take advantage of these classes. It's just going to make you a better instructor. The more information you can go out and collect, that's more information you can come back and bring to your students. You're going to help build them up, become better welders, better workers, and it's just going to make the workforce better. The other one that I like to recommend is the Level Up Your Classroom seminar that my buddy Ryan Eubank and Kyle Linko did last year up in Cleveland, Ohio. They're doing another one this year down here in Orlando. It's going to be awesome. But these workshops and seminars, they've been the most instrumental pieces to my journey in welding education because you get to meet and connect with so many different welding educators from across the U.S. Like I said, the best part is the networking. Now I have a handful of people that I can call and say, hey, do you have blueprints for this? Or, how do you teach this? Or do you have like a PowerPoint for that? Or, we're studying for this. Do you have any information on this? Or, hey, I've got a student that's actually, they're finishing up my program down here in Florida and they want to move out there to, Arizona. And I know you live out in Arizona. Do you have any contacts? Boom. I've been able to place students that way because I know so many different educators from all over the U.S. Another cool thing is AWS actually offers scholarships for welding instructors to attend classes like these. Not just the Educators Institute that AWS puts on, but I mean, you can get a scholarship for up to like $750 to go to whatever class that you want. Like I used that scholarship money one year to take a bunch of classes at FabTech. Boom, done. It wasn't any money out of my pocket. The school covered my travel expenses to get up there and back. AWS, they covered the classes for the course. I think I was able to take 3 or 4 classes while I was up there for the couple days that I was there, and it worked out perfect. So, check on those different classes, see what's around, just Google, classes for welding instructors, just see what you can come up with. I'm sure there's more out there. These are just a few that I've attended that I can kind of recommend from my personal experience. And I really think that by attending these classes, you'll become a much better welding educator at the end of the day. Like the more classes you can attend, like I said, the better off you're going to be, the better off your students are going to be. And then we can start, flipping the industry on its head and make more educated welders coming out of school. That's why a lot of companies don't want to hire kids coming out of school. They don't have that experience. Well, what happens if I can start training them up to be better, than what's been produced in the past? Employers are going to be beating your door down and start hiring your students. We have pretty good job placement rates at my school. Like, I don't want to brag, but I mean, it's because we work so close to industry, and I go out and take all these classes, or I send my instructors off to these different classes, and they come back and we can train much better educated, much more talented welders at the end of the day. So, maybe they might disregard that 3 to 5 years worth of work experience and give them a chance, because not only can they weld, but they can cut, fit, and fabricate. So just things to consider. Make yourself better. You can make your students better. Well, everyone, I think that pretty much does it for this week's episode of Just the Tip. Thank you to everyone that reached out and asked about getting into welding education. As always, if anybody has a topic that you all want covered or a question you want answered on Just the Tip Tuesday, you can send me an email, show@arcjunkies.com. You can DM me on Instagram @ArcJunkiesPodcast, or you can send me a message right through the Arc Junkies website, arcjunkies.com. If I pick your question, I'll give you a shout out on the show, and I'll send you a free Arc Junkies sticker pack. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.